Mal.
Oh.
Hi, everybody. Press the frickin' button.
Chairman Mao, yeah. What was Chairman Mao's first act, Tony? To take everybody's guns away.
Oh, well, they didn't. Those were flintlocks anyway.
We still got 2 minutes. We're still warming up.
Funny how once people are in power, they don't want anybody else to have guns. Because why would you need guns when I'm in power? Because I'll make sure you're safe.
Have you seen the Childish Gambino video? Have you seen America?
No.
No, yeah, I've seen the breakdown of Childish Gambino.
You have not actually watched it.
Oh my God!
I prefer to stay at an intellectual level. I want to be at the meta level.
What? Have you seen it, Chris?
I've watched it like 12 times.
Do you pay attention to anything on the polo or the thread at all, April? I'm getting the sense that all you care about is your burrito. Since the burrito, we're meaningless to you. We're just shadows. What are those Kubiyaki puppets? What are the shadow puppets? Tony, we're Japanese shadow puppets.
Kabuki? No.
Kobayashi?
No, that's
Kabuki?
not right.
Kabuki theater?
I don't even know the cultures we've offended just now.
We're just Kabuki theater shadows to you now. In the light of the burrito.
So why don't you watch Childish Gambino?
Oh, see, this is a deflection. We've pointed out to you that folks that are watching, pay attention.
Won't you, Bart?
We're pointing out to you that Chris bared his soul about his reaction to this video on a thread. You're now acting completely surprised by Chris and the emotional reaction he had to this incredible video that everybody in America loves, by the way. But you weren't paying attention to us. You weren't paying attention to us. You're focused on your burrito. It's all about the burrito now.
And we're live. It is officially 9 o'clock. How are you? I'm hoping that Shy Lewis, somebody tweet at or Facebook message Shy Lewis with the Cats of SPSM account. We have a guest kitten. He's not a permanent addition. This is Klein the feline who's joining us tonight. He is hanging out at the Foreman house at the Doc Foreman house temporarily. But he just thought he'd join us. It's almost his bedtime.
With his little paws.
With his little paws. Kittens for suicide prevention. Look at that. Also, tweet out your favorite kitty picture. Tweet out your favorite kitten meme in the service of suicide prevention. We're going to be talking a little bit about podcasting. We're going to be talking about Shane Dawson today. Bart also has, I think, some interesting news from hashtag HC leader for the healthcare leadership stuff. There's that chat group has sort of an interesting thing coming up we want to give some love to. But let's do a really quick shout out. We're waiting for our guest. He's in Puerto Rico and he's popping on. Fantastic. Josue's here. Fantastic. So we're going to be talking about all of that. I'm at Doc Foreman. If I didn't have a kitten in my hand, I'd make the sign. You're at hashtag SPSM, the Suicide Prevention Social Media Chat, where we're going to be talking about interesting trends in suicide prevention, social media, and some of our content migration, which we want to talk to you a little bit about, as well as why, like Shane Dawson, got me shook this week. And I have not been a fan of his until this week. Everyone, say hello to Tony Wood.
Hey, everybody. I'm Tony Wood. I'm the chair of the board of the American Association of Suicidology. I am also the COO of Quantify. We did a nifty project called ourdatahelps.org. Go on over and donate your data. And if you can't donate your data, join AAS at suicidology.org. Just go ahead and join right up. We got like 355 days or something until next year's conference. Chris will tell you.
Here's Dr. Bart Andrews. He sounds like a robot. Say hi to the people.
Is my connection that bad? Is it really bad?
We're going to move to Chris Maxwell. Chris Maxwell, say hi to the people.
Hey, everybody. I'm Chris Maxwell. I'm Communications Coordinator for American Association of Suicidology. Super happy to be on tonight to talk to Josue about our badass transition into podcasting. We had a really, really awesome call with him yesterday. So, Josue, we're really happy to have you on the show officially tonight. And really, I'm really just interested in pitting you and April against each other about our whole Twitch thing.
I brought a kitten.
I brought words.
Josue, say hi to the people and introduce yourself.
Hello, people. My name is Josue Cardona, and I run geektherapy.com, including the podcast network, which SPSM Chat is about to be a part of. Yeah.
And we're going to talk a little bit about what that is in a minute. Bart Andrews, say hi to the people.
Hello, everybody. Dr. Bart Andrews from a groovy little crisis line in St. Louis, Missouri called Behavioral Health Response, and a proud executive committee member of the American Association of Suicidology. If you haven't joined the American Association of Suicidology, don't walk to the website and join. There's so much good stuff going on with AAS right now. Chris Maxwell, who is our communication guru, is moving and shaking and making so many things happen that are helping us move our message forward. And I think this lines up really good with the content of the show, because as we are reevaluating our place in the social media stratosphere, what's the best way to reach people? How do you make sure your message gets out there? And the folks at Geek Therapy are amazing at this. And also, Josue, thank you so much. The level of support that they have provided us, the consultation,
and on the call, Bart.
Well, I'm not sure that everybody out there needed to know that. I think that's probably kind of in the group stuff that we can keep inside the circle of trust.
I wasn't on either of the two calls.
Do we take commercial breaks? Because I think we need to have a powwow about this. Can we run the commercial? Jordy, run the commercial.
This is a really great minute to do a couple shout outs to some of the folks who are joining us. So first of all, thank you so much, Betty Page Gaming. That's Stephanie Owens from stackup.org. The nail polish is great. I picked that out to speak at a truck stop. Really, truly a suicide prevention event. That was a car show, truck stop, music venue, super cool, with the Louisiana Department of Secretary, with the Secretary of the Louisiana Department of Veterans Affairs. And I thought this was like totally the right thing to do. And apparently every neighbor that I have has been stopping me. Bart said there's a reason for that and then wouldn't tell me what it was. But thank you very much. We definitely do have Klein the Feline with us, and we want to do a shout out. I have Klein the Feline with me today because he is orphaned. He doesn't have a mom. And Mother's Day, I want to do a shout out, of course, to all of our moms on Mother's Day, but we actually, I know, have several members of our SPSM community who have to celebrate Mother's Day without mothers. And I just wanted to let you know, these are several of our dear members, like more than just a couple. And Amelia Lato sort of does wonderful bits about that and has done some wonderful bits about, she did some wonderful social media about her mom. And we just want to let you know that if this is a hard day for you, like, come talk about suicide prevention, but also that we love you and we're thinking of you. That being said, we're really excited to have Josue Cardona back. If some of you will remember him, he came on our show a little bit back to talk about Geek Therapy and to talk about gaming and suicide prevention and to talk about how they were using gaming language and geek language to talk about mental health. Of course, Stephanie and the Stack Up folks could not agree with you more, I think. And Stephanie, you totally have got to meet this guy. He's fabulous. And I know you're on Twitter right now. Everyone say Josue. Can you tweet that out? I don't know, maybe not. Oh, Ren's on. Great. Meg is on. We have Carl on, all sorts of folks. Josue, tell everybody a little bit about what Geek Therapy is and about the podcast network.
Sure. So Geek Therapy started as a project when I was an intern and mental health counseling intern doing my master's degree. I got really mad at one of my supervisors for not letting me use video games with a group of 6 to 11-year-olds. I thought that was not the right way to go. So I went home and out of retaliation, I started a website that kind of showed how geek culture was being used to do good things in the world. So like comic books, video games, things like that. And that started as a curated website. Eventually it became a podcast. And then we have a blog. We have multiple podcasts now. It's a full network. And our goal really is to celebrate mental health and geek culture. So if we can talk about the things that we like for example, Avengers Infinity War, we can have an hour and talk about that, but also bring up some mental health themes and things like that that come up in it, and also show that therapists are people too. They're cool people. They like what you like, and have all these conversations going on all the time, but also being able to celebrate mental health. I think that's a good thing. So that's pretty much our mission.
And you, so first of all, Josue was fabulous, and we were so lucky to meet him as a result of Ali, who's been on our show a couple of times. And Josue approached us and said, you guys really can take your SPSM chats, and you've got this audio, and you could even be doing what you're doing a little bit better. And you could have, like, you could use your digital content and have a bigger impact. Like I would be happy to help you guys do this. And maybe this is a mistake I make a lot, where like it'll be really fast, it'll be really easy, which really truly, in comparison to how this was like 10 years ago, this would have been really labor intensive, and it's really not. But you're going to talk us through that process. Tell us a little bit about why you wanted to include us because we are so honored to include this in the Geek Therapy Network, and then tell us a little bit about like what we've had to do. And I'm going to let you and Tony and Chris really talk that through, because I understood about every fourth sentence yesterday.
Unless you want to talk about whether Thanos is a villain or a hero.
Thanos is a hero.
Spoiler alert. Say that. Didn't we know she would say that?
Motherfucking alerts.
Well, she's not wrong.
No. Part 2.
Spoiler alerts, guys. Holy shit.
Okay, go ahead, Josue.
Spoiler alerts for 40-year-old comics?
Podcast Network.
It's only been 2 weeks, guys. Come on.
Oh, yeah, that.
Yeah, that part.
Yeah, there's a little movie about it as well.
There is. So essentially, I don't think enough people are talking about suicide prevention. You guys are doing it every week. It's really hard to make content consistently. You guys have been doing that for a really long time.
5 years.
That's a really long time. And to get 4 people together once a week, for the most of the year to make a show together, to make an hour's worth of content is a big deal. And this is exactly the type of format that is perfect for podcasting, in my opinion. I'm obsessed with podcasts. I think that they can save the world. I think they are the best thing in the world. And I wish more people could hear what you guys are talking about, and some of your conversations are very timely. And just in general, just having something with suicide prevention in the title, and there isn't enough of that, right? So it's really important. And you guys are all involved with AAS, which means that you guys are credible, right? You guys aren't just, and now this doesn't mean.
Well, I want to back that. Wait, let's back up just a little.
I don't want to go into too much.
I want you to back that thing up. I'm very unclear.
That's ambitious. Let's roll with it. Okay, sorry, Josue.
There are caveats to that, but we don't have to get into that in this conversation, right? I mean, credibility. And that doesn't take away anything from people, because I know other people who have content and their mission is to help in suicide prevention. Maybe they've been, they've had a family member or they dealt with suicide themselves. So they it's affected their lives in some way. So they want to spread a message. But it's different when a mental health professional, someone with clinical experience, someone who is involved in a particular field wants to talk about something, and when someone who doesn't have that experience wants to talk about it. I think there's a place for all of that, and I think all of those conversations can exist. I think we can feed off of each other, and talk about what's being done right and what's being done wrong in general. But you guys are also really goofy and silly, which I think is the most important part, right? We can talk about really serious topics, but also laugh about it and crack jokes.
The only problem with the podcast is that when you said that, the faces everyone pulled on the bottom bar were fabulous. This is why we're laughing. But yeah, the Muppet Show of suicide prevention. You bet. So,
I say goofy and silly.
Yeah. We're into it. Believe me. I think that if you're going to be listenable, like Thomas Joyner is great. And he is really, really listenable. But if you're going to do an hour every week, it's got to be compelling, and being ridiculous is all I have. So we talked a little bit about how we were going to do this, and here are the facts. It really takes a lot of people for SPSM to happen. So it takes all of you. Big shout out to M, Rin, Scott Tiernan, all sorts of people who retweet, who share messages, who post memes, Chris, who does all this wonderful video editing, who teaches us how to do thumbnails, Bart with his memeing and good co-hosting and great content ideas, Tony, who makes all of the sort of the infrastructure of what we do work. It takes a lot of people. So you were like, we can do this. It won't be so hard. You told me some things that couldn't interpret. And so then we brought in Chris and Tony, and we had a meeting yesterday. So sadly, we thought we would have some episodes ready and something ready for people to subscribe to today. We ran into some obstacles yesterday while we were working on this. Can we make it like an accessible version of explaining to people what the process was and what the obstacle is?
Sure. So essentially the process to getting this show into a podcast is really one additional step to what you're already doing. So, and that step is pulling the audio out of your video and putting it on an RSS feed, which is what you subscribe to on your phone or on any other device. And so what we need to do is just move the website to a similar version of the website that has what's considered a plugin, like has the technology built in, so that then you can just put that audio file, do exactly the same thing that you've always done, just adding one step on top of it, so you can put the audio file there, and then it's a podcast. But we just had a hiccup with moving the website from one place to another. As soon as that's resolved, it shouldn't take long.
And Tony, can you explain a little bit about that?
Josue is going to explain to us in an easy, simple language what DNS is.
What he did?
I'm joking. I'm just joking. That's a joke.
That was actually the first time I understood half of yesterday's call.
There's no way to explain DNS. It's not. There's even no reason for you to. There's no reason for you to know what DNS is. But the bottom line is that our DNS has to be redirected, and we have to change our name servers in order to move the website from one place to another, so that we can have more, so we can have software extension. It's a long story, but the point is, check back next week.
Check back, but we'll still be working on it. Additionally, it looks like we're going to have to, it isn't like, so I imagine, remember we talk about this when you see us present and sometimes on the show, I imagine that a lot of things are like Harry Potter, you press some buttons and suddenly we're in your phone and in your living room, right? And, you know, on your TV, if you're Amber Cannon or whatever,
yes,
like that
is
kind of
exactly how it works. I thought it was going to be hard to explain, but that is not. That was
right. But it turns out, in fact, that if you want to do this stuff, if you were like me and you were not a good like technical expert and you were not a quick study, and I am not about any of this, Tony will tell you I'm not. But what you have to do is you have to make friends. And this is SPSM and good messaging is really about a community. So Tony is helping with that bit of it. And then Chris, can you explain a little bit about the process for, we have to transition these audio files, right? And we have to do them like one at a time or something?
Yeah, unfortunately, a majority of the services that allow you to pull down any information from YouTube videos are kind of jury-rigged at some point, that like, really you just have to pull the URL, copy and paste it into the website server, and it will transfer it into an MP3, or it'll, like I have one that will actually allow me to download an MP4 version, which is what I use for this the sizzle reels. So for each one of these, we're going to have to go back and pull the audio out, and then we'll just rehost them on Josue's generously provided server. And then we'll put them on the new site, and it'll be as easy as that. And when we do that, it'll automatically upload to that RSS feed that Josue was talking about, allowing people to subscribe to the podcast in whatever form that they are comfortable with. It's super simple. It's just going to take a little time.
And remember, this is volunteer time, so we just do this. And so we're really grateful when people like Josue want to team with us, or when Stack Up wants to help. We're really, really grateful, because the facts are that this is a really important message, and it's a lot of us just sort of carrying it forward. The great news about what we do is that we can talk very irreverently, and we can speak very frankly, and we have a bunch of experts speaking very candidly. We can bring a kitten on the show. We can do things like that. Hello, everyone, say hi to the kitten. We like the kitten, right? We can do things like that are playful and engaging, largely because we don't have a lot of bureaucratic overhead on our messaging. And so we chose this sort of situation largely so that we could cover things that were interesting quickly when they were relevant, and because there were some things that require speed. And we're going to talk about some of like some current events this week where we need to be able to talk about things without a lot of overhead approval, like just using our good judgment about what we think is relevant. And this is like Josue, people like you sort of who have an ear for it allow that to happen. Tell us a little bit about some of the other channels in the Geek Therapy Network, because of course the goal isn't for you to just like come listen to only SPSM things. Like there's a lot of related content, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So Geek Therapy started a long time ago as me interviewing other mental health experts who use things like comic books, video games, things like that. And I was just trying to meet other experts. Eventually, I started a second podcast called Psych Tech, which is about psychology and technology. And then a third one, which was about psychology and video games. And mental health was always a big deal. You know, we were kind of including that in all of our conversations. And then it was, I decided to put them all together as a network because they all came from the same place. So I was like, you know, it makes sense. Let's pool resources together. Stop talking about them as three different entities. And shortly after that, Jedi Council, which is a completely independently produced program, I don't have anything to do with how they're made.
Them too. Sorry.
Yeah.
And we're here. Sorry. Keep going.
And they were the first program that they actually reached out to me and were like, "Hey, like you have a network. Like, could we like can we join your network? Like, have you considered having outside people?" And I hadn't at that point at all. And that was really exciting. And it was a really good fit. Like I love Katie and Brandon a lot. And we talk a lot now. And Brandon is on our Twitch team now, so he streams with us every week. And so, you know, there's a lot of similarities. So they joined the network. We also have a tabletop gaming focus show called Rolling for Change. We have Geek Family Therapy, which is great. Which was
tabletop game show.
Sure, you have to talk to Woody Harris. He's the host of that one. Yeah.
Do you know about me in tabletop games?
I don't.
I'm a little fucking hardcore. Let's do this shit. That's all I'm saying.
Like real games or like Monopoly?
No, she gets
Candyland stuff.
Super real.
Like real games.
Like Euro games? Like for real?
Yeah.
Okay.
Why don't you believe this about me?
I just wanted to check because a lot of people are like, "Oh, I love board games." I'm like, "What do you love to play?" They're like, "I love to play."
And I just got
Yahtzee.
Monarch and Ex Libris.
You literally just said Candyland. Like literally, he just slipped that in. He just slipped Candyland in there. I didn't hear the letters those way.
Those are just the little ones that we play at dinner time. And then we have like a whole shelf of like different boxes. Really?
I love it.
You just think I'm a dummy.
Monopoly?
I'm just double checking. Gotta double check. Because Rolling for Change is no joke. It's a serious game.
I'm not fucking kidding. I'm
just saying. I'm like I'm on most of the episodes and I am the novice. I'm the one with the least experience. I'm the one that always says when they start talking about a game, I'm like, oh, that sounds like a video game I've played before. Because so talk to Woody.
I want to meet anybody named Woody.
Yeah, no, Woody's great. And then we've got Geek Family Therapy, which was funny, was someone in our community who not exactly, but sort of complained that we didn't talk enough about family dynamics. I was like, well, then start a podcast. She was like, I will. So that's a great way to do it. And we've got a few new shows coming up that some that I'm working on, some that other people are working on, and they've agreed to join the network. Some people just have an idea, and I want them to help out. But mostly, it's mental health professionals, health professionals. We have some occupational therapists who are doing projects with us. Cool. But basically, it's using geek culture as a conversation starter, as a means to learn about health, mental health. In many cases, you know, like reach some sort of healing. I mean, Rolling for Change is it's really about the transformational power of games. So it's an exploration of like, how does playing a game change you for the better? And is that possible?
Thinking about things like strategy, tactics, how you can give yourself options and how you solve problems. It's pretty great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Can I throw a shout out to the other like communities that you have running too? So your Facebook page and the Geek Therapy group on Facebook have been really, really vital for me, and I know a couple of my colleagues, in staying up to date with any of the research that's coming out, or individuals in the group who are researching things or who are on top of stuff, and they throw all this stuff out in like really real time, especially when it comes to like conferences or conventions or big kind of things.
Like people like Bo Pinkham?
Bo Pinkham, yeah, he's thrown out a bunch of posts asking for either collaborations or information about certain things. There have been real-time collaborations happening on that group that have been really cool to watch. Somebody wants to write a proposal for a presentation at a convention, and they get some people together, and they shoot this thing off. And so it's really, really cool to see. Go check those out on Facebook too, because they're very critical for what we're doing in mental health and suicide prevention.
Yeah, we've had some books come together. Actually, we've had people who wanted to write a book and actually have co-authors come together on in the Facebook group. That's at you can just go to Geek Therapy on Facebook, or if you want to go straight to the group, it's facebook.com/groups/Geek Therapy. No.
And just to answer Scott Tiernan's question, if you want to find old SPSM videos, you can do it one of a couple of ways. You can go to spsmchat.com, and we've got, of course, our blog, and each blog has the video related to it embedded. You can, of course, go to our Wakelet account. If you go to the SPSM Wakelet, we've exported our store files there. And of course, you can get all of the links to the videos, the blog, and all of the tweets there, or you can just go to our YouTube channel where you can, at SPSM, and there was a period where YouTube had like they put us on hold for 6 months for, don't even ask. But or you can go to the Doc Foreman YouTube channel. There's a bunch there, and so you can watch the videos. And Chris Maxwell has generously every week been editing a 2 to 3 minute sizzle reel. So if you want to just sort of see see a couple minutes to see if you're into the topic or not, that's like a really great thing to check out. So and now we'll have a podcast form, which is just amazing. Yeah. So Josue, so we've got Stephanie from stackup.org on. Stephanie, say hi. And you've got some Twitch people, and we of course, you and I have been talking about the strategy of moving to Twitch, and I've been looking about which platforms we're going to broadcast from, how we're going to do it. And of course, the goal is to have content broadcasting kind of all the time, ours and also members of our community, so that different people can be projecting. If they want to auto host or send their audience to our content, that we've got stuff that's rolling that's valid and important to related communities that they can get to all the time. They don't have to just tune in Sunday night. You have some thoughts about Twitch as a piece of a strategy, not as a whole strategy. You really talked with me about it. You're really passionate about it. Tell the people.
So just the same way that the option that I gave you for a podcast is based entirely on what you've built already. Like if you told me today, we're scratching everything that we're doing and we want to start a podcast format, I would do it differently than what we're doing right now. So everything I told you about Twitch is pretty much based on exactly what you're doing so far. So I don't know. I mean, it would be different for anybody that I spoke to, but specifically for you guys, I think that you've built so much content on YouTube already. And I think that everything that you want to do on Twitch, you can pretty much do on YouTube, except for the hosting other people, and kind of the idea of having a channel that's going on at all times isn't as easy, or I don't know if it's exactly like, I don't know what you're envisioning and how,
I don't know
what
either. We're working on it.
Yeah. I mean, I say go for it, try it out. It's going to, like, it's so easy to use the Google Hangouts to record yourselves and have yourself set up, and that's it. Like, to go on Twitch probably is going to be way more difficult. And so a lot of the comments a lot of thoughts that I have are pretty much just to make your lives easier for all of you, all four of you.
So, and we'll work on that. We think we may be able to sort of use this platform until Bebo comes out, maybe use this platform and just broadcast from this window, and or like, pre-record and broadcast a pre-record and run a chat that's related and have all the analytics. But we're going to try some things. This is one of those deals, and this is relevant to the Shane Dawson Graveyard Girl conversation we're going to have in a little bit. Also, just want to announce that Stack Up Games. Oh, so first of all, just in Geek Therapy News, has everybody got the Rick and Morty? Did everyone get the Rick and Morty news that just came out? Rick and Morty got renewed.
The 70
and
episodes?
It's it's such a good deal that it's basically, they can probably do what they want to do for the next 10 years. Everybody have a moment. Hallelujah. But apparently Stack Up has a Friday night RPG game that streams on Twitch. That's a lot of fun, which, by the way, I watch a lot of live stream board games. Not gonna lie, I maybe watched
like Candyland, like Monopoly, or like real board games,
like Numbers and Climb and things like that, like new ones that are just coming out. Like, what you were such a
yeah.
You were like Catan, but like newer.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Such a jerk. Like Will Well,
what's Funhouse's D&D stream that they have?
Ooh, I don't know.
Have you guys watched that one? It's
Yeah,
I don't
I know
remember
what
what
you're
it's
talking
called,
about.
but it's fantastic. They go off the rails. It's lovely.
Oh, look, we've got Roll for Change, PsychTech Cast, Headshot. Look at all these great things. We're gonna be updating all of this, I think. Before we talk about Graveyard Girl and Shane Dawson, because I'm really gonna talk about platform change and social media change and migration in light of some current events. I would love for you to talk about hashtag HCLDR Healthcare Leader. They've got a neat event coming up, Bart, and you wanted to make sure to mention that tonight.
I'll do a quick mention. So if folks don't know about Karen Reynes, she's head of NAMI in Austin. They're doing a collaboration with Healthcare Leader, the hashtag HCLDR, this is a really smart thing that they're doing, right? So they're doing a lead up to a big event that's going to be in Austin, a big presentation called Changing the Conversation Around Mental Health. So they're going to actually have a Twitter chat on HC Leader before the event, and leading into the conference 2 days later, which is really smart. So I'll tweet out the link again so folks can see it. But they're talking really good stuff, and it's really about a lot of things you've heard us talking about at SPSM, about we need to change our approach, we need to change our language. The things that we've been doing in the past aren't as effective. And they mention, as part of this, they mentioned Tony's favorite book, The Emperor of Maladies, and about the amazing change that
all maladies by Siddhartha Mukherjee.
If you don't get the details right, it's that and Sylvia.
No, it's just a really long title.
It's not that long of a title, but I did leave an important word out, Tony, and I'm sorry. It won't happen again. I just don't want the punishments that you inflicted earlier. I know that I screwed up, but it won't happen again, Tony. Anyway, I'll tweet out the link. And so I think that it's a really smart thing they're doing. I love the partnership between Healthcare Leader and NAMI Austin and this whole idea of changing the conversation. And I'll tweet that out. And thank you, April, for giving us the time to share what they're doing.
Absolutely. So when SPSM started, and we've talked about our origin story a couple times. We were actually in Austin, sitting at Frank's, like eating gourmet hipster Austin hot dogs. And what we were saying was that we believe that technology, new media, and innovation were really important in suicide prevention. That we weren't seeing it anywhere, not in suicide prevention, generally not in the mental health space. That we were excluding ourselves from important messaging opportunities and important conversations and important possibilities for research and innovation. And SPSM Chat started to bring that conversation into the mainstream in suicide prevention and mental health. And that was 5 years ago, and we did it. That's a lot of content. And in the middle of that, like all of us changed, like all of our, I mean, everybody's lives change, but like in terms of our positions in the suicide prevention community and in terms of like our ability to influence like productive conversation, like all of that really happened in a relatively short period of time. We saw research accelerate. We saw new ideas happen. We got to be sort of front row for all of that, which was super cool. That being said, we really did accomplish a lot of, we accomplished what we set out to do 5 years ago.
The combined efforts of thousands of clinicians and researchers and SPSM has really made suicide prevention what it is today.
Stop it. Wouldn't that be great? Not quite. But wouldn't that be great? We've done some cool stuff and it's been really fun. So the issue is now we're all in different places in our careers and what we're doing. A lot of wonderful things have come to the mainstream. There's sort of new stuff coming up behind it. And the platforms have matured. And we've been talking about maturing platforms. And this week I want to talk about Shane Dawson. Do you guys know who Shane Dawson is?
No.
Okay, so Chris, what do you know?
I mean, it's back when I like way back in like 2009 when I was really watching YouTube shows. He was on there. He was the biggest name on there. So I watched some of his characters, some of his shows, but I haven't kept up with him at all.
Right, and it turns out that's really the story. So that's what happened to everyone with Shane Dawson. So Shane Dawson is one of the very first really OG YouTubers. And he comes onto YouTube early and he learns how to get a lot of subscribers. And he has, I think, like 13 million now, right? And he's in, and he was doing okay, but the platform starts to mature, his audience matures and changes, and his views start going down. And several YouTubers have started to experience this phenomena where people's views decline, and they're not sure why, because they're doing the same content that they've always been doing, and maybe even doing it more strategically or more tactically. Why are the views declining? Are fewer people watching YouTube, or they're doing content they don't believe in as much? Things start to be sort of very formulaic, things like that. Or their audience has grown up and isn't watching the same things. And so Shane Dawson started noticing this. And if you go watch Shane Dawson in 2009, 2010, or even like maybe just back like a year ago, he was doing really, really different kinds of videos. And when he began to realize he wasn't turning around his views, he sort of stopped and did a rethink about the formatting of his shows. So this week on YouTube, and I know that you guys are always, you love when I talk about other YouTubers, but I really think that tells us a lot about what's happening in social media, because these are people who often make their living and make very significant livings doing media and messaging. So paying attention to them makes sense. He does this thing about my channel is dying, exposing Graveyard Girl. And do you guys know who Graveyard Girl is? She's sort of a very specific person as well. No, because she's totally a lady. But let me tell you, these are people that my children watch all the time. And then just like you, Chris, they were watching them a lot and their views fall off. So Graveyard Girl is in Houston, Texas. And she was kind of going through a rough time in her life. So she starts going on YouTube, and she's a wacky, sort of very colorful person. And she does, you will see these episodes, they're all over YouTube, does this thing really work where she gets like as seen on TV products and tests them out. Or she has sort of some weird interests and some weird collectibles. And she has been doing her channel where her views also declining, many of these major YouTubers. And at SPSM, we're noticing platform maturation. Now, we're not Shane Dawson or Graveyard Girl, so he brings her on and he starts doing a very different style of programming. And all of YouTube starts, like, he really drives change. He starts doing Oprah-esque programming. Does anybody remember? I know, we're going far afield. It's Bart's favorite thing. Oprah from the 1990s. Does anybody remember 1990s Oprah?
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember that? What was it like, Bart?
So, I mean, one of Oprah's things, I mean, and correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of Oprah shows were people who had been famous or had fallen off the path, and she'd do these really intense emotional interviews with people, and often they would experience this resurgence in popularity and get back on track. And it was also one of her Oprah's interviewing skills. Oprah's a genius, right? And she would make these incredible emotional connections with people, have them tell their story, and then this would also help them kind of readjust and change and re-engage with the public. The Oprah effect, right? It was really, in fact, her empire was based on this. It was powerful stuff.
And Oprah, you know, was doing these like shows like that were just in this cruddy little, I mean, it wasn't cruddy, but it was like, if you watch old Oprah's, like little studio, you know, she's talking to people in chairs, she's just interviewing them. And, you know, we really credit Oprah with having a really big impact on destigmatizing things, and especially things related to mental health and social justice, right? Like, she was a really major influencer in all that. Bart, see your Bart face.
What? I didn't make a face.
You totally made Bart.
I didn't make a face. That's crazy. I guess. A burrito. I ate a bad burrito.
You ate a bad burrito. So one of the things that
I think we all need to thank Oprah for the America's best clinician, Dr. Phil. I think we all agree.
But
everyone agrees, Dr.
Ethical, upright, outstanding, evidence-based. He is what, when I see Dr. Phil, I say, you know what, you model your approach on that, my friends, because that's what therapy looks like.
That's what therapy is, Dr. Phil McGraw.
So Shane Dawson is no dummy. And he thinks about that, and he's going on and he's doing an Oprah Dr. Phil. Like, I'm so glad you mentioned Dr. Phil. He starts taking that approach with Bunny, and the views are going through the roof. And other YouTubers, like this week, just like a drop the hat, have all started doing it. And these are people who are watching their views decline, couldn't figure out why, talking about how YouTube changes the platform, changes the algorithm, just like Twitter's changing. So social media is really, really fluid. It really, really adapts. People change what they're doing. They change styles. And it's very, very driven by what's happening right now. Can you imagine in the land of research, if people were changing research methodologies as fast as people change the way that we do media, right, Chris? And Chris, you are a media expert. You do comms and you pay attention to this, right? does your media look like now, or do you pay attention to now the same things you paid attention to 2 or 3 years ago?
Oh, absolutely not.
How is it different?
I mean, so you're looking at the platforms, you're looking at the audiences. The audiences are going to be, I mean, what we know that generally on online, digital audiences are largely driven by 14-year-old girls. Isn't that
That's
what
true.
Yeah.
Yeah, and language and audiences like and unless you're on Twitch, and then it's boys, right?
Right. So you have to figure out, number one, what is your audience, but also where are they going? So what are they interested in? Are they watching Logan Paul, or are they watching documentaries? Where do you need to be focused on? What are the other really popular content creators doing in that space? This goes down all the way to silly little trivial things like, what fonts are you using? What sort of design elements are you using? What sort of trends do you need to be paying attention to? It goes really, really foundational. So, but you don't have to get that foundational if you're just looking at what you need to be including content-wise. That's one part of it. Figuring out if people want a Pimp My Ride kind of program, or if they want an Oprah program, which one's doing better at the time. Look at what like in the context of podcasts. Look at what things like The Dollop have done, or the number of true crime podcasts that have come out recently, or the S-Town podcast, or what was the NPR one that was really big? I'm blanking on.
That was S-Town, I thought.
No, the one before that, the True Crime podcast.
Oh, Serial, yeah.
Look what Serial did. Serial started an entire genre. I mean, like, there were some true crime podcasts, but they really boosted the entire true crime podcast genre. And so you just kind of have to find those ones that are kind of viral in nature, and then you find what's relevant, and then you just kind of ride that wave. And you have to be able to go from wave to wave without a whole lot of, you have to be nimble enough to kind of move from wave to wave, I think.
Josue, what do you think about all this?
I think it's, social media is always changing. Media is always changing. I think especially now, because everybody can just make their own thing. What success has changed a lot. Like, so 30 years ago, a popular show on TV was getting like 20 million views per night. Now, no shows do that now, right? Like the Super Bowl maybe gets something like that. My numbers may not be exactly right, but like 2 or 3 million views per night on TV is considered successful. And for people like us who do our own media, who are independent content creators, I think it's really important to be really clear on what our measure of success is. And I think that a lot of times people focus on number of views or number of subscribers and things like that. And we don't think enough about, are we reaching the intended audience? Like, have we actually reached everybody that would possibly want to listen to our show? And it's really hard to know when to hit that number, because there's so many things that you could do that most content creators never do. I think most of the successful ones, they actually go the extra mile. They make the like, for example, for Twitch streamers, there's this saying, right? Always be streaming. And so the successful Twitch streamers don't stream once or twice a week like we do at Geek Therapy. They're streaming 7 days a week for hours. Some are doing more than 40 or 50 hours a week. And so they're doing a full-time job there. You know, like, have we gone all the way? Have we gone as far as we can go? Are we paying for advertising? Are we talking to the proper stakeholders? Like, there's all of these things that as independent content creators, we have to do to compete. Like, again, YouTube is many things, but at its core, it's just a platform. It's just a place where videos exist. There are other things involved there. Most people don't make a living on there. The people who make a living solely on YouTube are very, 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 very small percentage. Most people have YouTube as a component of something else, right? So Twitch is a piece of something else. And I think that today, I don't know, the whole idea of success, I think it's kind of, if you want to live off of this type of media, is a very different conversation than, are you being effective in what you want to do? Like, that's a very that could be a whole episode, right? On are we being effective in our messaging? Are we reaching the people that we need to reach? And I could go more into detail with that, but those are kind of the first thoughts that came to mind.
And Scott even says, not that anyone asked for my opinion. No, we did. We would love to hear from you, Scott. But social media is still in its infancy. It will likely look so different 5 years from now. And it looked really different 5 years ago when we started this. The issue is the reason that SPSM is experimenting with new platforms and doing new kinds of projects is, number one, no one believed that we were going to, like, not me, least of all, that this is going to be 5 years weekly show. Like, we covered so much, and we're going to cover things, and we're going to do it, I think, in new ways as well. But good gracious. And so the platforms are going to look differently, and what people are going to want to talk about is going to be different, and we're going to be different. So one of the things that Shane Dawson, is what happened to him was he grew up. He has a partner now. They're working on, he and his partner are wanting to have a baby. Like, they're, so like their lives are really different. So what he's passionate about or what he wants to talk about, those things are different. We have a very different perspective now. Most of us who are involved with SPSM, just because we've been in the profession a few years longer and we've done a few new things and new stuff's happened. So we're interested in new topics. We want to do things that are relevant right now versus the one thing or the one format that we really liked 5 years ago. If you overly commit to a platform or you overly commit to a message or a project, it'll run out of steam really fast, right? So we've had an amazing amount of longevity, but the issue is, what is next? What do we want to do? And I'm really thinking that through. And I would love to hear what you guys think. In my opinion, what I think we want to do is start involving people in the conversation, especially young males right now, involving them in the suicide prevention conversation, because they are the population that over time, if we find ways to engage them, they're the ones that have the most skin in the game. They are at the highest risk, and they're very likely to be at the highest risk. So if we were going to change attitudes and we were really interested in doing something that would make a difference, we would start right now paying attention to the public health messaging to young males, and not messaging to them, but engaging them in a conversation right now, anywhere that they are, and asking for their help, because they're only going to have more resources and more influence as they age in society, right? And asking for their help in solving a public health problem that has been really, really challenging to work on. And in my mind, like, that seems like a way for us to be tactical about our social media. What do you all think?
Yeah, so I think one of the things that we see with the really, really big YouTube stars, any of the channels or groups or whatever who have millions of followers, I think they kind of inherently already knew that they have to have this kind of multi-audience approach. A lot of the bigger groups have different channels where they have different audiences and they focus on different things. Even Shane Dawson had multiple channels for individual characters, right? So I mean, they should have known that this is just another iteration of how this is going to play out. So just like you're saying, I think, and I think this can generalize to the larger suicide prevention field in general, is that there are going to be trends in research. There are going to be trends in awareness campaigns. There are going to be trends in whatever it is we're looking at in suicide prevention and mental health. But we have to be able to say, we sunk a lot of money into this. It didn't work. Now it's time to move on. Or we sunk a lot of effort into this. It didn't work. We still have rising rates. It's time to move on and try to find something better, and something that connects with the audiences who we're trying to connect with, and act exactly what you're talking about is where we should be going. We should be asking for help. We should be looking at the high risk populations, so the youth populations, and then the middle-aged men populations. And we should be saying, how do we connect with you? Mm-hmm. And we need to get as many of you on board with our efforts and our initiatives as possible. Get the lived experience people on board. Get as many people involved as possible.
Josue.
Yeah, like what Chris is saying, there's multiple pieces to a lot of these media empires, put it right. I mean, and finding people and meeting them where they are. Like, if I think that there is an effective way to use social media and to use media platforms like this. And it is understanding each of them differently. So I think if you're going to be like, if SPSM is going to be on Twitch, then maybe those should be game nights, right? Like if you like to play board games, do game nights, you know, where they have access to people who know about about suicide prevention and can ask questions if they want, or at least they get to know you, right? And there's something that they have in common, and then that's on Twitch. And on YouTube, you're doing conversations like this. You're doing interviews with people who can share their stories. On Instagram, you shouldn't be doing the same thing that you're doing on Twitter, right? Those are completely different people. And as platforms continue to come up, like your Facebook page should be different than a group that you're a part of. Your newsletter should be different. And you may have people, like you may interact with people on
I'm allergic
Twitch,
to newsletters.
But a lot of people love newsletters. I mean, a lot of people hate on email, but email is still the #1 way to connect to people. Like, like you can look it up and it's still the most effective way, because social media, like you can have 1 million impressions on something and that doesn't mean anything. That just means that it went past somebody's screen. It doesn't mean that they saw it. Doesn't mean that they clicked on it. Doesn't mean that they read it. And it definitely doesn't mean that they remember it. You know, it didn't have any effect necessarily. So
I think we've spent the last several minutes. Sorry to jump in, Josue.
Okay.
But I think we've just been talking about fragmentation for like 5 minutes. And I think it's important to give people a term, because there's a lot of work that's being continually done on fragmentation of media. And the reason why it's so important for all of free media is that free media is based on advertising. And the fragmentation of the last 20 years of all the channels has been perplexing to the advertisers. They've had it's been a constant cat and mouse game for them to try to find the right cat and mouse game. Anybody? Anyone? Just me? Okay.
Klein fell asleep.
But for them to hit their core, them to use the media as they used to hit their core audience of whoever of their consumer for their shoes or clothes or watches or floor wax or dessert topping or whatever it is they're trying to sell. So what does that mean for us? Well, I think it's time that suicide prevention and public health, especially mental health, pays attention to these trends in media and public relations. These are we can utilize the skills of thousands of professionals who are very highly paid experts working for the world's best brands for our little corner of poorly funded efforts, and it'll help us make a big difference. But I think Chris could probably speak to it better than I could.
About having appropriate design and quality aesthetics and just general strategy for marketing and promotion. I mean, it seems like a really intuitive concept, right? But yet we think that, and this is the thing, and something that I actually had a conversation with a bunch of media professionals with on Monday, and we heard this a few different times from a few different people. What we do, we're steeped in it. We do this every single day. We do it every single week. We do it for hundreds of hours every year, if not thousands of hours every year. We know that this is really important. We know that we're losing 45,000 people a year to suicide. We understand the importance of this struggle that we're doing, the blight of suicide. It's important to us, but it's not inherently important to the people who we're trying to reach. So we can't assume that the audience has the same expectations or the same weight given to the issue that we have. So if we come at them, if we come at anyone, if it's the media, if it's the public, if it's your audience, if it's a legislator who you're trying to address in a certain context, we can't assume that they're going to take this seriously or think it's important. So we have to find ways to address this and to speak to these different, very distinct audiences in ways that make sense to them. Otherwise, it's just going to be us screaming and yelling about the same thing over and over and over again. It's basically going to be panhandling, for lack of a better term, in a really, really hostile environment where everyone else is on the corner panhandling at the same time.
Well, not only is everybody panhandling, but like when people are panhandling and trying to I'm tired of us begging to save people. Like, like we really can help, and this is a really bad thing. This, because people understand well, or there are other things getting in the way. Maybe we're not getting asked to do what we can do for the world, and that's a real concern. And so the issue is, how do we engage people instead of just begging on the corner for someone to pay attention to us? And so, like, if we really believe, and I know, Bart, you would agree with Mike Hogan, that there are things that we already know that we could be doing better that would immediately have an impact in reducing mortality rates. And we aren't doing what we already know how to do and have the resources to do, let alone all these innovative things. How do we message about that? Because I'm tired of begging people to listen to us to help them. Like, I don't think that's the way.
I think that the real challenge we have here is a lot of what we're doing is inside baseball stuff, and we're talking to each other. And if you actually, somebody did a network analysis of, and maybe it was somebody on our show actually that did a network analysis of the suicide prevention community on Twitter versus people at risk of suicide, and the groups don't intersect at all, right? There's very little overlap between the people we're trying to reach versus the message that we're trying to help people. So I think that there's some real challenges here for me, and Chris and Tony has talked about this. Suicide prevention isn't cool. We haven't made suicide prevention cool. As a Generation Xer, this is really interesting. And this conversation came up on a podcast I was listening to. Econ Talker and Jonah Goldberg from the Remnant podcast were talking about this concept of how Generation Xers were the last group that have a shared popular culture. This idea of culture fragmentation is something that is occurring because there's so many different channels, there's so many different things. And we also, I'm just going to say it, I don't care anymore. We're too risk averse in our messaging, and so we end up with a lot of really sterile, boring messaging that doesn't really translate well into outside of the suicide prevention community. We keep saying, look how important this is, look how important this is, and then we do the same old stuff, and we're not connecting with the pop culture at large or fragments of the pop culture at large. This is why things like 13 Reasons Why are incredibly more powerful than most of the crap that we're doing in suicide prevention, because it's reaching a large audience, right? And they're taking risks with what they're doing, and they're taking a lot of flack. But you know what? God bless them, because they're getting their message out there, and they're creating a narrative, and they're drawing attention. Meanwhile, we're stuck here in this little bit of inside baseball. Let's talk about this little thing or that little thing, and we're not catching on the big wave. And I think until we do that, until we start taking risks and we gamble and try to connect with a larger pie, we're going to continue with this same thing where suicide prevention professionals are talking to each other about how we need to do better suicide prevention. So
right. And that's, I mean, the reason to do SPSM is that we could take risks. We could talk about ideas. There isn't anything we really can't talk about. If we want to, we can play with platforms. We can try new things, and then we can tell others in a way that I would love for there to be funding for us to do this full time, right? Think of all the things we could do if we didn't have to work while we did this, right? But for someone to say, figure out which message catches and let it catch fire. But right now there's and a lot of, even though we've never really solved the problem yet, there's a lot of, we don't want to pay for things that haven't been proven to work. And I'm like, dude, we haven't found what works. We're not.
It's innovation. Innovation is innovate in R&D. Yeah, that's the whole thing.
Mm-hmm. And by the way, we've put Klein to sleep. Look.
Oh, Klein.
We're way past the final thoughts.
No, we aren't. We're exactly on final thoughts, Tony.
5 people.
What? No. 6. Okay, go first.
I gave my final thought. That was my final thought.
That was beautiful.
When did you become the moderator?
Could we become proactive? Could we become more proactive and less reactive? Could we? Just a question. That's it.
What the hell is that supposed to mean, Tony?
Precisely.
Is that Chris Maxwell's final thought?
No. I have a legitimate final thought. So this one actually comes from. I was working on a report to do earlier this evening, and I have a 2-part final thought. My first one is start early, take risks, and move strongly onward. We have to figure out a way to get ahead of this stuff and move powerfully forward. Second thing is everybody needs to go reread or read for the first time some Dale fucking Carnegie and figure out how to talk to people.
Aren't we supposed to be experts in that? Or do we only talk to suicidal people? Is that
we really
all
only talk to each other? We don't even really talk to suicidal people.
Ooh. Final thoughts, Josue?
I'm going to jump on what Chris just said, like learning how to talk to people. In 2018, that means learning how to use these platforms more effectively. So like I say this with love, if your videos still look like they did 5 years ago, right? Or if they don't look like the other people who are on YouTube, right? Maybe there's stuff that we can do, right? Learning how to talk to people on YouTube nowadays means
Chris just
high definition.
To make out with you just a little bit. Maybe there's stuff we can do.
That means good lighting. That means better microphones, right? Like the setup I have right now is just like a webcam sort of thing. But if I were going to record a vlog, it would be different, right? Because I'm talking to people. Like that moment, that like instant that you have to impress people with your thumbnail and those first few seconds in your videos, like like YouTube is fantastic with analytics, and if people are dropping off after 10 seconds, we can make some connections about why that is. And that goes to everybody who's on YouTube, right? So over time, you can make those changes. And I think that's a part of learning how to speak to people, because if you see the popularity, like the popular people on YouTube, there are all kinds. There are all kinds, right? I don't think there's one way to learn how to talk to people. I think it's also important to have different people talking, right? Like I'm really proud that on the Geek Therapy Network, we have like so much diversity on our show. Race, age, religion, yeah, everything. And I think that's really important, because how else can you reach, like learning how to talk to people, I think involves using different language and the audio and video and all of these components of it, including social media. That's part of that language.
Excellent. Any final thoughts, Bart?
A big thank you to Josue and all the help that we've been given. The consultation expertise you're providing, it's so valuable, and the fact that you've reached out and helped us with this, we just appreciate it so much. Thank you for helping us be better. Really appreciate it.
Final thoughts. SPSM is going where everybody else already is. Not where no man has gone before, right? SPSM going where everybody else already is, so that suicide prevention can catch the fuck up. Everyone, 10 o'clock. It's been another hour. We will be giving you updates, and we have a podcast for you to subscribe to. It should be soon. We just had to work out some technicals yesterday that we didn't finish. That being said, we've got some cool stuff coming up. We've got a few guests planned as we're rolling into the last few weeks of our final season in this format. So tell your friends if there are things that you want to see, guests you want to hear from, topics you want covered. As we're trying to figure out what we're going to do, let me know. Also, I'm going to do a tabletop episode with somebody on something about mental health. So help me God. Too fun. Talk with you all later, everyone. Take care. Bye.
Good night, everybody.